So, how many of you know Moomins and watched Moomins? Okay. And how many of you know that Moomins come from Finland? Quite a lot. So, Vaadin also comes from Finland. The company is based in Turku, in Finland. That's southwestern Finland. Turku used to be the capital city of Finland. Me, myself, I'm Maciej Przepióra. I work for Vaadin. I did work for Vaadin in Finland. Now I work remotely from Poland. And today I'm going to present you the Vaadin Designer. This is a new tool that we just released for visually building your Vaadin web applications. And I'm going to talk about a couple of things today. So let me start with the presentation. Okay. So we're going to talk about visually designing your UI for the web applications. How many of you have tried the designer already? No one. Did you use any other visual designer tools for other technologies, like, for example, the Grid Designer, Delphi, Visual Basic? Well, my wife, who is a lawyer, she told me when I was explaining her what I'm going to present, she told me that when she was a kid, her father is an IT guy as well, so she told me that she built an application with Delphi in '90s, so yeah, she could understand what I'm talking about. Okay. So let's have an overview of what we're going to cover today. First of all, what are we trying to achieve? Oh, sorry, Keynote broke. So a quick overview. What are we going to cover during this presentation? First of all, what is Vaadin Designer? Why would you want to have one? How did we develop it? What are the choices that we made when we were developing it? Then I'm going to show you a quick jaw-dropping demo. And then we're going to talk about the future of the designer, what we want to achieve once we get 1.0 out. Okay, how many of you have heard about Vaadin? Okay, most of you. Do you use it daily? Not so many. Do you use it at all? Some of you. Okay, we can talk at the booth. What are your choices and why are not using Vaadin? What are your complaints? We can hear them and think about what could we improve about the framework. But let's think about Vaadin itself. What we are trying to achieve with the framework. We want to build a framework that will allow you to easily build business applications UI, and we want to help you with making those UIs great, look great, perform great. And that's of course a mouthful, and it's not clear what we're talking about. But the basic idea is that Vaadin is not about building websites; it's about building applications. And we have found out that usually those applications are business applications that are in the back office. This is changing right now. We're getting more and more customers with a bit different focus, but it's not a web page area at all. And we've noticed some interesting things with our customers. So let's take a look on consumer application, right? Consumer applications or consumers expect fluid, great-looking, great user experience apps. But while we have come to expect those great user experience from consumer applications, the reality might be a bit different, right? The business applications are a bit different. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just more complex, but it gets the job done. And for most of the time, Vaadin applications were something like this. Why would it be so? What is the reason for that? So I came up with some totally numbers that, well, they're made up, but let's think about the number of the users. If you're developing an application like Google Contacts, you have millions of people using them, right? If you develop a business application, it's usually at most hundreds of people, right? Then let's think about how much do you charge the users for the application. So with Google, let's assume that's $1 per user, right? And with business application, that's 500 per license or something like that, right? How many views are there in your application? So in case of Google Contacts, that 10 views or so. In case of a business application, that might be 50 views, 500 views, that depends. And then let's sum it up. So how much do you get to spend per view? In case of Google, you've got lots of money. But when you're developing a business application, it's just $5,000, right? Those numbers are made up, but I want to make a point here. You don't have that much money when you're developing a business application, and well, you need to use this money reasonably. So you don't get money to make it look great. The other thing that we've noticed is that many people seem to be doing more complicated stuff at work, many developers, than at home for fun. So it means that if you have a complex app, you have less time to work on the user experience. We're trying to overcome this with the framework and with the tools around it. So our focus for Vaadin and for the tools is that we have an open source UI framework, and we have great components, we have great tools, and great support for that. And one part of this is Vaadin Designer. It's one of those things that can really help speed up and help you with the user experience and with the design. So what are our targets with the designer? At the moment, we're targeting developers who don't have time to think about user experience. We're thinking about designers, but that will come later. And our main focus is to speed up layout in your web applications. And there are some new features as well. So we want to fit into your workflow. We don't want to become an obstacle. We don't want to mess up with your code. We want it to be really fast, and we want you to have an option. If you don't want to use the designer or decide that you're dropping it for at some moment, we still want you to be able to use whatever you produced with the designer. So that's our targets. So if you want to try out the designer, you can go to this URL, and you will be presented with an update site for Eclipse, because right now the designer is an Eclipse plugin, and you'll also get a trial license for the designer, because the designer is a commercial tool. If you come to our booth during the conference and leave us your email, we're going to give you a license as well. Okay. So the Vaadin Designer is also included in Pro Tools package. Or once the 1.0 is out, it will be sold as a separate product for $389 as well. Okay. So have you used the previous Visual Designer, the Eclipse plugin? You didn't like it, did you? Yeah, I know. So there is a couple of things about the previous Visual Designer. So first of all, the development was kind of paused for a while, because there was always more important stuff that we needed to do in the company. It was supposed to work with Vaadin 6, and it kind of worked with Vaadin 7 until you tried the more advanced stuff. And we really wanted to make it awesome, but there are some things with it. First of all, it's a web application that is embedded in Eclipse, right? So everything is contained inside the view. You don't get the outline view from Eclipse. You don't get the properties from Eclipse. So we thought, okay, it's not integrated with Eclipse. We could improve this. So let's take a look on the new designer. How does it look like? I'm just going to launch it and show it to you. Just a minute. So this is the new designer. I'm going to create a new design inside of it. So I'm just using Vaadin Design wizard from Eclipse. Okay, so I'm creating a new design. The design consists of two parts: the HTML file that describes the design itself, and the Java file that is used to export. So I need to name the design as I would name a Java class. So let's call it Devox demo. And then I have a couple of templates that I can use to start off. Well, the most obvious one is the blank template, which doesn't contain anything. But in current beta version, there are also 3 templates that are just layout that is added as a component that you can start adding things to. I'll start with blank. And let's finish the wizard. So that's how the new designer works. It's integrated, which means that you get Eclipse palette that you can drag components from. You get an outline that you can use to see the tree of your components in the design. And there's also a properties view that you can use to edit the components. So let's drag some kind of layout. Let's start with vertical layout. It is selected, so now I can edit the properties for this layout. For example, I can give it a name. Okay, I can give it a caption. Okay, it's not displayed. But if I use some kind of component, like for example a button, and edit its caption, this will be updated live. My layout. Oh, sorry. Okay. So this is one of the nicest features. It's what you see is what you get, and it's live. Then it's also exported to Java file. So once I open the Java file corresponding to this design, you can see that it is available for me so that I can work with the field in a Java class. Or, for example, I can add listeners to it, right? But one thing that you need to be aware of with the Java file is that it's automatically regenerated every time you edit the design. So you don't want to put your code here, right? And there is even a comment that you shouldn't edit this file because it will be overwritten every time you do the edits. What you should do is you should subclass this class, and then you have access to all the exported components through those fields in the class, right? Okay. So this is the designer. The nice thing about integration with Eclipse here is that you can do whatever you like. You can put your views in whatever way you want to. And you can even save it as a perspective in Eclipse. Do you use perspectives in Eclipse? A lot. Some of them. Some of you are. Okay. And we have a pre-configured Vaadin perspective as well, so that you can just, when you create a new design, it just kicks in and you can just start developing. Okay. One of the nicest things that you can do is that you can, when you open the HTML file, you can actually open it twice. And then you can have this kind of Xcode view so that you can edit the HTML live and then see what what's happening in the design itself. So let's just make it a bit bigger. I'm going to copy paste this button here. I'm going to save it, and it updates live, right? Okay. Okay, let's get back to the presentation then. So this is how the new designer looks like compared to the old one. Our focus and the result that we got with integration is that it's more modular, and it's going to be easier to integrate with other IDEs or put it into a web application. Because the designer itself, what you see is what you get part, is actually a Vaadin application that runs in an embedded browser inside Eclipse. So many of you that come to our booth actually asked about the designer. Are you going to do this for IntelliJ as well? And yes, the answer is yes, we're going to do this for IntelliJ as well. Well, we did a lot of code cleanup with this rewrite as well. And we're actually focusing on the user experience as well, because we heard that a lot, that people are hating the designer. After initial playing and figuring out how things work in it, many people just dropped it. Okay. So let's talk about another part of the change with the new designer. In the old Visual Designer, we had a Java file that was created with it, and the Visual Designer updated the Java file. So the problem was that if you tried to edit this file and the Visual Designer couldn't understand it, you were stuck, because there was nothing that you can do it with it. At the time, it seemed like a good idea, and some people liked it. You had to just add your user code. But we decided that right now, because in real use, it really breaks easily, and you need to write your code in a specific place. The code structure doesn't reflect the UI structure, so it's hard to reason about it. And it actually gets ugly. The code gets ugly really quickly. So we thought, well, let's do it in another way. Once we have the visual design, we should use some kind of a declarative syntax to describe this visual design. And we decided to use HTML for the declarative syntax. And there is a reason for that. I will mention it later. But the nice thing about the HTML file and HTML declarative syntax is that it's a framework feature. You don't need designer to use it. Okay, some flickering. This is a framework feature that has been around since Vaadin 7.4, and Vaadin 7.5 is around the corner. So it's not the designer feature, it's the framework feature. You're not locked into the designer. You can use any other markup tools that you want to use for it. And you can use it without designer. We think that it's going to be faster when you use the designer. But it allows you to do this kind of editing stuff, right? So you can have the HTML file and the visual as well on one page. Then the designer, as I mentioned it before, creates the companion Java file. You can do this manually, but the designer will do this automatically for you. And if you edit something in the visual design, this file will get overwritten. So it's better to extend this class. And we think that gives you a nice separation between the view and the logic of the view. It's for example, it's very useful to when you're using a model view presenter pattern. Okay, there are some templates included. We're going to include some more of them with 1.0. And then, nice thing is that you can also get viewport resizes in the designer, so you can see how your design reacts when you change the screen size. Okay, so let me show you a quick demo of the new designer, what is possible to achieve with it. So I'll turn on mirror display. Okay, let's get back to the designer. By the way, I'm running the version that is built straight from master, so it's even better than beta that we released. Okay, one thing that I want to show you is that the designer allows you to live edit the style sheet for the application and reflect that in the design. So I'm going to open the SCSS file that contains the definitions of styles that are used in the application. Open with text editor. Unfortunately, Eclipse doesn't have a nice SCSS editor yet. Okay, so I have my button here. I can add a style name to it. So that's a CSS class that I'm going to use to style this button. Let's call it my button. Okay, and then in the CSS file, I'm going to add my rule for this. So let's call it like this, my button. And then let's make it like this. And once I save the SCSS file, it's compiled and the application updates itself live. So if I change the color to, for example, blue, it will again compile the style and update the it should be blue. So this is live updates. I don't need to click reload or anything like that, right? I can see my changes live. This is one thing. The other thing that is also about live editing is about that's a really nice feature actually. So what is possible? You can view the design in a browser. So I'm launching Safari, and that's how the this view is going to look in Safari. But I can also use a QR code to view it on a device. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a screencast from Chrome to connect and to show you how my tablet device looks like. Okay, so this is my tablet device. Let's resize it so that you can see what's going on there. Okay. So what I'm going to use a barcode scanner to scan the QR code that is displayed in the designer, and I'm going to open this design on my device. Let's go back to okay. So it has loaded my application right now, and the nice thing is that okay, let's add another button here. It's on the device. So those of you who are sitting in the front rows can connect to a very specific Wi-Fi network that I just set up for the presentation. And you can scan the QR code as well. This works on intranet network. So I needed to have this specific network set up. If you scan the QR code, you will see the application updates live. Come on. How many of you have phones? It should. Yeah, I can see that I'm getting some people connected. But you first need to connect to this POO network. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, the QR code. Let's make it bigger. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I can see that there are some other browsers connected. Like you just connected, and that's displayed here. So it's kind of a security feature, so that you know that someone is looking at your design as well, right? Okay, so this thing currently works only on intranet networks, but we have plans about it as well. Okay, so you can see that if I edit the application, it changes live in your browser as well. Okay. So let's get back to the presentation then. I'm really sorry about that. Okay, I'll just turn off screen. Where is it? Okay. Okay. I just need to turn off mirroring displays. Okay. Let's get back to the presentation. Okay. So, we wanted the new designer to be modular, to be flexible. We wanted to use declarative syntax. That's something that a lot of people ask for. But we also need the Java file so that you can use the components that you added to the design. We were asked about templates, so we added some templates, and we're going to include more of them in the release version of the designer. The nice thing is that you can resize the viewport and see how it behaves, how your application behaves. You can use responsive design as well. And then you get an external preview as well. So if you're developing, let's say, you have your boss with you, and you want to show them how the application is going to look on a mobile device, you can just ask them to connect to this specific address, and then you can live update the application. So we think that speeds things up a lot. We also made an experiment internally in the company. We had an application that we already developed that has a view with 80 components or so. This is a huge form that is split into 2 columns and has multiple sections. This is an application that is used for some things like travel invoices and buying prospects and things like that. But the point here is that developing this single view with Java API, without designer, without HTML declarative syntax, just pure Java Vaadin API, it took me something like 3 hours or so. And I think I'm an experienced Vaadin developer. So it took a while. Then I took designer, and I tried to design the same view using the designer, and it took me an hour and a half. So that was kind of 2 times speed up. And this is something that we see for every single person that tries out the designer internally in the company. So we think this is a speed up, and it just for the developer, right? And there are other things that can also work well. Okay, so what is the future of the designer? What are the plans that we have for the designer? So once we get 1.0 for Vaadin users that use Eclipse, we're going to work on IntelliJ IDEA plugin as well. We're going We're also going to target a wider audience, not only Vaadin users, with version 2. So we're going to think about user experience designers, about web components, about GUID itself. So nothing is set in stone right now. Okay. Nothing is set in stone right now. We want to hear from you. What are the features that you would like to see in the designer? And we think that that's the best way to plan for the future. It's about users, right? And then the big plan is the web components. When you open the HTML file, well, there are no such HTML elements, right? Unless you create web components and you set up your web page to use web components, then you can have things like that, custom elements, right? And this is not a coincidence, right? Right now, with Vaadin 7, this is faked because the HTML design is read on the server side. It's parsed by the server side part. It creates a Vaadin component tree, and then it's displayed in the browser as it would be if you create it with Java code. But this will not be like this in the future. And the main focus, of course, is the speed. We want to remove workflow steps. We want to make things more automatic for you. So one thing that we thought about is when you have a, let's say, an entity object, entity class, or something like that, maybe it's a good idea to generate a design form automatically from it and have the designer just parse this class and create the fields for you. This is just an idea. We're open for your ideas, so just come to us and tell us what would you like to see in the designer. Okay, thank you very much. Feel free to contact me. I'm on Twitter, and you can also mail me. You can come to the booth and talk about the designer more. Thank you very much.